Our speaker, LaShonda Reed Larry, is the founder of Envision Inclusion Consulting Services, Incorporated. She is also an executive at Essilor, the world's largest ophthalmic lens manufacturing. She has held prior leadership roles at American Airlines and Healthcare Service Corporation. LaShonda believes she is fortunate to work in a space that aligns her professional and personal passions. Essilor's mission is to improve lives by improving sight, and its goal is to eradicate poor vision in one generation. Working for a purpose-driven organization is what fuels her work. As an advocate for fairness and equity, LaShonda volunteers her time with organizations and causes focused on improving the lives of children, women, and underserved populations. Her current and former board service includes Workforce Solutions for North Central Texas, Leadership Women, North Texas Industry Liaison Group, Jack and Jill of America, Susan G. Komen Dallas affiliate, and Dress for Success Dallas. LaShonda earned a BS degree in accounting from Southern University and A&M College. When asked how she does it all, LaShonda attributes the support of her family and quotes an excerpt from George Bernard Shaw's poem, A Splendid Touch. Please join me in welcoming LaShonda.
Good morning, everyone. How many of you have heard of Essilor? Oh, one, two, hold your hands high. I'm going to be really impressed if more than 3 people have heard of Essilor. So how many of you wear glasses even if you don't have them on this morning? Yeah. So Essilor is a French-owned, now French and Italian-owned company. We just merged with Luxottica. How many of you know Luxottica? Oh, okay, a few more hands. So you've heard of Ray-Ban, Oakley, LensCrafters. That's Luxottica. Essilor is the company that makes the lenses within your frames, and we have the technology that goes in your lenses. So if I were to walk outside and my lenses would turn dark because of the product called, who said it? Transitions, right. So that's who Essilor is, and I've been there 4.5 years. It's been a wonderful time for me to be at Essilor. They did not have diversity, equity, and inclusion when I joined the company, and so I got to come into this global organization and create something from scratch with a group of people who are really committed and dedicated. We just had a discussion with our leadership team, and we were talking a little bit about privilege, and when I joined Essilor, all of the leadership team, we had about 23 leaders. They were all white males. And in this conversation we had last week talking about privilege, they were saying that one of the reasons they brought me on was because they didn't have any diversity. And I challenged them on that because I think we have this misnomer, right, about diversity and what it is. And quite honestly, yes, they were all middle-aged white guys, but 2 were from Canada, 3 were from Europe, 1 is Jewish. They're from all over the world. They have different backgrounds and cultural experiences. And so when we define diversity narrowly, our focus becomes a narrow focus, and we don't get the fullness of what D&I is, right? And we will never get to equity because we're looking down this narrow lane. So privileged to work for Essilor, having a great time. And so I wanted to tell you a little bit about who I am, because I think when you have conversations about privilege, it's important to know what your own privilege is. And sometimes it's hard for us to see our own privilege, especially if you're in a historically disenfranchised or marginalized group, or what we call minorities, right? So if you're in one of those groups, it is really hard to see what is my privilege. So how many of you have raised a teenager or are currently going through that crazy situation? Okay. So I have 3 boys, and so my husband and I this year will be married 20 years. We are in the sandwich generation, and so we have aging parents. These are one set of his 2 sets of parents in the picture down at the bottom with my mom on the end, and then he has another set of parents. So he was raised by 2 sets of parents. Everybody is in their 70s. And my mom and dad got divorced when I was really young, so I was raised in a single-parent home but had 2 very engaged parents, right? So my 3 boys, have the awesome opportunity to have very close relationships with grandparents. How many of you have really had solid relationships with grandparents? You were fortunate enough that they were living and you got to spend time with them. Everybody's so dispersed these days. You don't really live right next door to your grandparents. Well, my mom lived with us for 12 years. So my boys had that privilege of having not only parents in the house, but a grandmother who would have just fallen on any sword for them. So I get a call a few minutes ago. A lot of you not, my phone is right here. My middle school son. So we're talking about privilege today. And it is so hard for him to understand his privilege. He plays basketball. He's been playing since he was 3 years old. Very competitive, amazing kid. He's gifted and talented, very cocky. And a lot of you know, he's my kid, and I'm telling you, he's a cocky little somebody. Beyond confidence, it's cockiness. And we've been trying to talk with him about this cocky behavior and how cockiness would get you in trouble, whereas confidence will set you up for success because you're going to work to be confident. You're going to put in the practice. He doesn't like his coach. He literally, the last text I read, which I'm not going to look at my phone for the rest of the day because his dad can deal with it. I'm not going to play for a coach who won't let me play the way I want to play. He's 12. I could not make this up. I'm quitting tomorrow. That's privilege. So I'm in the sandwich generation. So I just turned 50 last year. And this is a new space for me as a parent, right, of I have a 7-year-old, I have a 12-year-old, and I have a 16-year-old who's a year ahead in school, so he's about to graduate out of high school. And he really believes he's ready to go off to go to college at 16. I don't think so. But we'll see. We'll see. But I had to put up here that I am a diehard Louisiana Saints fan. I'm from Louisiana, born, and I know I'm in the home of the Seattle Seahawks. I love the Seahawks too. Go Hawks. We're out, but we had a good run. But I was born in Louisiana. My mom is one of 19 living children, same parents. And my dad is one of 15 living children, same parents. And so we were pretty poor growing up, farm family, sharecropping family. But my dad joined the military before I was born, and I will tell you, it literally lifted us out of poverty. So I always talk about the fact that I'm the child of a Vietnam vet, because not only did he serve the country, but it gave him an opportunity to get his family lifted out of poverty. So that's why my kids get to have the life that they get to have, right? So I thought I would start there, because when we talk about power and privilege, I didn't earn any of these benefits that I got from my dad, right? I was born into a family that was a military family. They got to travel the world. I have first cousins, and our lifestyles are totally different. I'm sure you're the same. Everybody doesn't get the same exposure. I did not earn that privilege. My dad worked for that, and I got to benefit from that, right? And all the things that came along with that, health care, never been without a doctor in my life, right? Because all the years that he was in the military, 25 years. So I always could go to a doctor whenever I wanted to go to a doctor. I could go to college because he's a disabled vet, and he got assistance for me to go to college. So I did not earn any of that, but I reap the benefits of all of that. And so in my intro, when they were talking about what I'm passionate about and where I spend my time, I really try to give back to people who don't have those opportunities, or they aren't aware of how to gain access to those opportunities. And to me, that's what power and privilege is, and that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today. So we have 45 minutes in this session. How many of you have at least had a conversation about privilege? Thank goodness. There is no way you can have a real conversation about privilege in 45 minutes. And so I was really struggling with, how are we going to go deep into this conversation before we have an experience? And so how many of you have done the privilege walk? Because it's been around quite some time. Awesome. I'm going to ask you to be observers, because we cannot get everybody from wall to wall. So I'm going to ask you to help me with the privilege walk, and then when we debrief, you're going to become my hands, extension of me, and we're going to allow people to talk about their experiences once we're done with the walk. Does that make sense? Otherwise, I think we're going to have to run it twice, which we might, but that's okay. I think the more you see it and the more you hear people's experiences, you walk away with greater understanding. And so there's some good and bad that goes along with the privilege walk. Again, if you've never had the conversation and you go through it, some people tend to walk away maybe with a little bit of guilt, like, how do I end up here? And, everybody else is not here. What I would challenge us to do is not think about guilt. I do not feel guilty about my life at all. I just said I didn't earn any of it. I was given a life, but I worked really hard to make sure that I did the right things by the privileges I was given, right? But that doesn't mean I have to walk through life for people who didn't have those privileges, feeling bad about what I did have. Does that make sense? So when we're talking about privilege today and we're going through the experience, I want us to try to not take it so personally that, oh my gosh, look at all the privileges I've been given when there are so many less fortunate people. I'm a bad person, or I shouldn't have all of this, and why is it fair for me and not for the other person? I don't have a disability. I have a lot of people in my family who have disabilities. I work for the world's largest ophthalmic company, and we deal with disabilities. Well, I guess you could say I started wearing glasses when I was 45, so I still forget that I wear glasses. But not being able to see clearly is one of the world's largest disabilities, right? But I don't perceive it that way. And I say that to say, when we talk about, there's some seats right here if you want to come up front. Yeah, you can come up front. That every morning when I wake up and I leave my house, I never think about what obstacles am I going to face walking to my car, getting out of my car, going into my building. Am I going to be able to hold the door open for myself? When I sit down at my desk, am I going to be able to get all the things that I need readily accessible to me? When I go to the cafeteria, will they have something I like? I don't have to think about those things. I don't have obstacles, physical obstacles that are in my way, but a lot of people do. And so my privilege story, we all have one once you really think about it, is that I'm an able body. I'm in a country that some people like to, throw around religion. Well, I happen to be a Christian, so I'm really in a majority group in terms of conversation. I'm heterosexual, right? Middle class. I have a lot of privilege. I have a lot of things that a lot of people don't have. And so I say that to say, I know what my privilege story is, though, right? And I want us to begin to think about what is our own individual privilege stories as we have this conversation this morning. Because there are going to be some actions and some things that we can do when we walk in our privilege and we own it and acknowledge it to clear a path for others who don't have those same privileges. Does that make sense? Okay. So what is privilege? Well, Merriam-Webster says that privilege is a right or immunity granted as a particular benefit, advantage, or favor to accord a higher value or superior position to. Social justice definition is, privilege is the advantages people have that they don't think about because they never have to experience the effects of being without it. Today, we're going to talk about the second definition, okay? You never really have to think about it. So I was asked to speak on a panel at a company called Mr. Cooper. I don't know if any of you have heard of Mr. Cooper. I never heard of Mr. Cooper. It's pretty interesting company. And they had already done a panel of women who, not parents, but women who are parents, and what it's like to pursue a career and raise kids. We've had this conversation for generations, right? Well, the employees gave Mr. Cooper feedback that you only have white women on the panel. Like, my experience as a mother of 3 black boys is not the same as a mother who's not raising 3 black boys in this current environment. And so they called me and asked me if I could just be a panelist to talk about that same topic, but through my lens, right? And one of the things we talked about was my friends who have boys, the 12-year-old, he's been playing with this team since he's been 3 years old. That's part of his issue, right? He's had these other coaches in competitive basketball, and he's used to them. So another coach can't coach him, so he says. So on his team, I would say half of the team, there are about 12 boys, are multiracial boys. They either have a white mom and a black dad, a Hispanic mom and an Asian dad, but the majority of them are multicultural. And so when we sit down and have different conversations, sometimes there are some things I think about that they really don't think about with their sons. And so that's part of their privilege, is they don't have to think about, my 16-year-old is now driving. So I have to have the talk with him, right? We started having those talks very early at 8. You know, it's a hard conversation. My friends don't have to have that conversation. I don't resent them for it, but I want them to appreciate the fact that that is part of my experience and the part of my children's experience. So today, what we're going to talk about is we're going to go through an experience. We're going to go through the privilege walk, and then we're going to take some time and we're going to talk about what that experience felt like, what we might have learned from the experience, and how what we will experience together affects people around us. Because we're part of a greater community. We're not just a part of the Washington State employees. We're not just a part of the state of Washington. We go to church with people. We go to grocery stores with people. Our kids play Little League with people. So we're part of a larger community. And it's really interesting to learn what everybody's daily experiences are, because when they show up at work, they still have those experiences they're carrying with them. We all do a good job of masking them, right? Who in here does not wear a mask? You don't have to wear a mask. You can just be who you are 100% of the time, every single day, and you don't have to code switch. You don't have to adjust who you are. Anybody? Everybody walks around with a mask. There's the facade of who we want you to see, and then there's the person that we go to bed with at night. You know, it's your person. So I'm going to ask, for those of you who did not raise your hand, if you would join me in this privilege walk. Now, typically, I would go so much deeper before we go into this experience, but honestly, we have 45 minutes, and now we're down to probably 30. So we're going to go through this experience, and then we're going to spend the bulk of our time at the end really talking through it. One of the things I encourage you to do is, if you have questions, you can ask them at any time. Raise your hand. We could talk about it. There is a bowl by the water. If you want to tear off a piece of paper and write your questions down, we'll take those questions, and at the end, I'll try to answer them. But I'll pause right here because I just went through quite a bit to see if there are any questions. Any thoughts or any comments? Yes, ma'am. What is what now? Oh, is anybody else in the sandwich generation? Okay. It is. Do you happen to have kids yet? Okay. So I described earlier how I have this 7-year-old, 12-year-old, and 16-year-old, but I'm also responsible, my husband and I, he's the oldest in his family, so the responsibility of being the go-to person for his parents is him. So we are helping to help our parents transition as seniors. We would never use the word as they get older, right? We're helping them transition into their senior life, senior experiences, and we're raising children while we are trying to be whole individuals. And so you're sandwiched between children and parents, and you're trying to figure it out and not go insane yourself. Between that 16-year-old and 12-year-old, y'all just be with me today, I'm telling you. Like, send me good vibes. Send me good vibes today. I'm trying to see how my husband's going to handle all this by himself. He can do it, though. I have total faith in him. So, can you just raise your hands again if you have already gone through the privilege walk? Okay, can you all just join me, kind of come up here, and that way I can see how many people we have that actually do the walk. And we're going to count the people in the room who are left. Thank y'all so much. Now, if you want to go through the experience, you can go through the experience, too. I don't want to take it from you. Oh, it's fewer than I thought. Okay. So, there are going to be, how are y'all doing? Good. There are going to be a series of questions that I'm going to ask as a part of the privilege walk. And what I want you to do, the instructions, I put them up here. So just like they're lined up here, there's a yellow piece of tape behind these chairs. I'm going to ask you, as many of you who can, to line up shoulder to shoulder, facing the camera, okay? Facing that wall back there. And so as many of you can who can get on that line, and we're going to shoulder to shoulder facing the same direction I'm facing, please do that. And if we run out of space, we'll do it twice so other people can participate. Okay, yeah. So we'll see. If you're comfortable, hold hands, but you don't have to. I know, like I said, I came here yesterday free and clear of any coughs. Today I'm hacking, so don't feel bad if you don't hold hands. I'm good with that. I was lamenting last night, should I bring some hand sanitizer so everybody could hold hands, but we didn't do it. Okay. So if you cannot get in the line, what I would ask is that you go ahead and take your seats, and then we're going to do 2 rounds, because this doesn't take that long. But you might want to turn around so you can see what this group is going to experience, okay? So if you can't move forward and back, just let me know. But I really want you to think about the statements before you take the statement, and then just 1 step forward if it applies, 1 step back if it does not apply. And then when we're done, we'll see where we land. Okay? Any questions? All right. So, if you have had meaningful mentors and sponsors at work, please take a step forward. If English is not your first language, please take a step back. If one or both of your parents have a college degree, please take a step forward. If you have changed your preferred dress, appearance, speech pattern, or cultural traditions in order to fit in at work, please take a step back. If your ancestry was taught in elementary school, please take a step forward. If you were in foster care as a child, please take a step back. If you get time off to celebrate your religious holiday, please take a step forward. If you identify as other than male or female, please take a step back. If you can easily find Band-Aids, hosiery, and other products designed to blend in your skin easily at a store, please take a step forward. If you feel unsafe walking alone at night, please take a step back. If you have worked with people you felt were like you, please take a step forward. If you were ever made fun of or bullied for something you can't control or change, please take a step back. If there were people who worked for your family as gardeners, nannies, housekeepers, please take a step forward. If your family ever left your homeland or entered another country not of your own free will, please take a step back. If you would not think twice about calling the police when trouble occurs, please take a step forward. If you have ever been diagnosed as having a physical disability or a mental illness, please take a step back. If you can show public affection for your partner without ridicule, please take a step forward. If you ever had to skip a meal or were hungry because there was not enough money to buy food, please take a step back. If you feel respected for your academic performance, please take a step forward. If you were discouraged from an activity because of your race, ethnicity, gender, disability, or sexual orientation, please take a step back. If you feel good about how your identity is portrayed in the media, please take a step forward. If you have ever been profiled by someone else using a stereotype, please take a step back. If you were ever accepted for something you applied to because of your association with a friend or family member, please step forward. If you grew up being able to see a doctor whenever needed, please take a step forward. If you have ever been spoken over because you could not articulate your thoughts fast enough, please take a step back. If your family owned the house where you grew up, please step forward. If you have never been asked to speak on behalf of a group of people that share your identity, please step forward. If there was ever substance abuse in your household, please step back. If you can make a mistake and it's not attributed to your entire race, ethnicity, gender, or group, step forward. If you come from a single parent household, please step back. If you have more than 50 books in your home, please step forward. When you were growing up. If your family ever had to move because they could not afford rent, please step back. If you were told that you are beautiful, smart, and capable as a child, please step forward. If you have ever had to check other on forms that ask for your race or ethnicity, please step back. If you were taken to art galleries as a child, please step forward. If you ever had to skip a meal or were hungry because there was not enough money to buy food when you were growing up, please step back. I think that's a repeat. If you attended private schools or summer camps, please step forward. If you were uncomfortable about a comment related to your identity, your race, your gender appearance, or sexual orientation, but felt unsafe to confront it, please step back. Lastly, if you had immediate access to healthy food growing up, please step forward. Okay. So I want to give you a minute to think about the questions that were asked, think about where we all started together on the line, and then just take a look around, right? And so what this does is just lets us know that, many of us have very different experiences throughout life, and sometimes some of those experiences will give us some advantages that help us, whereas others may have to overcome some challenges to end up in the same place, or they never quite catch up, or it's really difficult to catch up. So at this time, I'm going to ask that this group, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. If you want to just think about it for a minute, because we're going to do a debrief, I'll give you time to think about it. And then we're going to ask the second group to come up. Thank you so much. Let's give them a hand for their participation. All right. So everyone who's comfortable participating will stand on the yellow, or stand right where the yellow line is or along that line. If you have mobility issues and it's hard to step forward or step back, please let me know. We can come up with something different for you. Wonderful. Do we have anybody else? And we're going to be shoulder to shoulder. And so if the people in the back are going to participate, we need you on the line. Otherwise, you are starting at a different point. Yeah. So if we can get tighter. There you go. Turn sideways. There you go. They're turning like this. Look at you. It looks like we're about to do a line dance. That's my favorite thing in the world. Honestly, if we had more time, I would have brought music. Okay. All right. Everybody who wants to participate, are you in line? Excellent, excellent. So I'm going to ask you the same series of questions. So you've at least heard them one time, and you've been able to maybe give it some thought. So if you have had meaningful mentors and sponsors at work, please step one step towards me. If English is not your first language, please step back or back over to the other direction. If one or both of your parents have a college degree, please step towards me. If you have changed your preferred dress, appearance, speech pattern, or cultural traditions in order to fit in at work, please step back. If your ancestry was taught in elementary school, please step forward. If you were in foster care as a child, please step back. If you get time off to celebrate your religious holiday, please step forward. If you identify other than male or female, please step back. If you can easily find Band-Aids, hosiery, and other products designed to blend in with your or match your skin tone, please step forward. If you feel unsafe walking at night, please step back. If you have worked with people you felt were like you, please step forward. If you were ever made fun of or bullied for something you can't change, please step back. If there were people who worked for your family as gardeners, nannies, or housekeepers, etc., please step forward. If your family ever left your homeland or entered another country not of their own free will, please step back. If you would not think twice about calling the police when trouble occurs, please step forward. If you have ever been diagnosed as having a physical disability or mental illness, please step back. If you can show public affection for your partner without ridicule, please step forward. If you ever had to skip a meal where you were hungry because there was not enough money to buy food, please step back. If you feel respected for your academic performance, please step forward. If you were ever discouraged from an activity because of race, ethnicity, gender, disability, or sexual orientation, please step back. If you feel good about how your identity is portrayed in the media, please step forward. If you have ever been profiled by someone else using stereotypes, please step forward. I'm sorry, step back on that one. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. If you were ever accepted for something you applied to because of your association or affiliation with a friend or family member, please step forward. If you grew up being able to see a doctor whenever needed, please step forward. If you have ever been spoken over because you could not articulate your thoughts fast enough, please step back. If your family owned the house where you grew up, please step forward. If you have never been asked to speak on behalf of a group that shares your identity, please step forward. If there was ever a substance abuse in your household, please step back. If you can make mistakes that are not attributed to your entire race, ethnicity, or gender, please step forward. If you come from a single-parent home, please step back. If you have more than 50 books in your household, please step forward. If your family ever had to move because they could not afford rent, please step back. If you were told that you were beautiful, smart, and capable, please step forward. If you have had to check other on forms that ask for race or ethnicity, please step back. If you were taken to an art gallery or plays by your parents, please step forward. If you attended private school and summer camps, please step forward. If you were uncomfortable about a comment related to your race, gender, appearance, or sexual orientation, but felt unsafe to confront the situation, please step back. And lastly, if you had immediate access to healthy food growing up, please step forward. Okay. So again, we all started on the same line together. I ask you to just look around, take it in. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna form circles of 10 people in each circle. So if I can just get 10 people over here, so like the first 10 people over here, if you can form a circle of 10. Right where I'm standing, another circle of 10. Okay, over here on this side of the room, another circle of 10. It's okay if we're off by one, one or two, it's okay. Another circle of 10, everybody gets to participate, as well as my co-facilitators. If you can come get in the circles, that would be great. Circles of 10, another circle of 10 right here. And we need 3 over here in this group, so get 3 people over there. Anybody else need a person in their group? Okay, that's fine. If you're at 11, that's fine too. And make your circle intimate so we can get more people in. Yeah, thank you so much. A circle of 10, anybody else? Yep, y'all come on in and just join any of the circles, the co-facilitators, if you would join any of this. Okay, wonderful. All right, so, let me click my slide. So here's what we're gonna do in the next few minutes. I wanna give you an opportunity to really think about that experience and ponder these questions. So the first question is, within your group, for about a minute, everybody doesn't have to share, but if someone is compelled to share, how do you feel about the exercise that we just went through? How did it make you feel? You can give one-word answers so other people can also participate. One word, what did that experience feel like? And talk within your group. Next question is, what did you learn about yourself from the exercise, if anything? Was there anything that you learned about yourself, whether it was, I thought I would be closer to the front, especially the second group after you heard the questions, or I was surprised to find myself at the back, if you felt uncomfortable. So what did you learn about yourself? Talk about that within your group. And as you think about this, I think we all are here. We work either for the state of Washington or we work somewhere and we saw the conference, but for the most part, we all work. So when you think about this experience and the conversation we had about privilege, what might be some implications in the workplace around privilege? Especially if you lead people, if you're a leader of a team, things that you hadn't thought about before. Does anything resonate with you that might be an implication of something that you might want to consider going forward? And if so, talk about that within your group. And then I know that there are some conversations still going on. I'll ask you to think about the last question, which is, what did you discover about people around you? And earlier when I first began talking, I told you that I didn't feel guilty about my privilege. It took time for me to get there, right? Especially when it's within your own family. So why was I so lucky? And my first cousin, who's 3 months younger than me, wasn't, right? It's hard to get past that once you begin to dig deep around what were the factors that influenced it. Some of it was chance. Some of it was, So as you think about the exercise and you looked around the room, because again, we all started at the exact same place, and then we began to answer these questions that affect lives of children, how we see the world, our worldview is shaped by that, right? By the time we're 12, we pretty much have a worldview. So what did you discover about people around you or about yourself? Did guilt seep up for anybody? Shame? Shame seeped up? And whoever felt shame, do you mind just elaborating just a little bit? And if you don't, it's okay. I'm just curious. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. We carry around our inner child with us every single day. We just don't acknowledge it, but we still remember. I listen to people who make a lot of money, like on Oprah, for example, grew up in poverty, but they're super rich, billionaire. And I hear them say things like, you never get over the feeling of not having, even when you have. It stays with you, the feeling. You never forget what it feels like to be hungry. You just never forget that, right? So I appreciate you sharing that. Anyone else? Validation? Yeah. Mm-hmm. 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 Absolutely. So as we take our seats, I'm going to wrap up and I'm going to share some things with you. So I opened up by telling you when I started at Essilor, the 23 senior leaders were all white males and they didn't recognize their own diversity. Well, part of my onboarding 4.5 years ago was to sit down and talk with each one of them, introduce myself. I really wanted to understand, as leaders of our company, this global organization, what did they think about diversity? What were their feelings around it? What did they think we should be focusing on? What would success look like? And that led to so many conversations. Many of you have heard the phrase lower the waterline, where you have the iceberg and what you see above the iceberg is only a fraction. The real meat of the iceberg is below the water. Privilege conversations are ways to lower the waterline, especially when you're able to take away guilt, shame, hurt, and blame. When you can take those things away and start having conversations, you really get to the meat of how do we begin to move forward so I can understand who you are, what makes you who you are, what were some of the struggles that you went through, what an overcoming story, right? For some of those questions, for people, we're all sitting in this room together, but people started at a different place, right? So as we wrap up, I just want to talk about, so now what, so what do I do on Monday? Right? So now what, so what? So earlier I said, while you can't get rid of your privilege, you can certainly acknowledge it and embrace it, and then you can do some other things. You can avoid the feeling of guilt and shame, not only in yourself, but you can relieve other people by not pointing blame for somebody who's walking in privilege. You can learn what people who lack ordinary privilege encounter as challenges at work and at school in their communities. You can provide clarity by forcing privilege into view and discussing it. And then you can use your everyday, ordinary privilege to help others who don't have the same privilege, and that's what we call allies. So I put a picture of my dream team, right? This is my crew, my ride or die at Essilor. When I came in there, I didn't know one single person. We were going on this journey, and I needed support. And all of these people work in different areas of the company, but they wanted to get on board and help the company do better, improve, fulfill our mission, which is to improve lives by improving sight. And as a result of that, we put this team together, and all of them are allies for everybody. Everybody. So I'll leave you with this quote. Thought it was great. So if you have privilege, use it well and use it wisely. And then I'll let you read the rest. And I will be in this room all day conducting sessions. So if you want to talk, if you have questions, if you want to talk a little bit more about the exercise, I'm certainly here. Would love to meet you and have that conversation. You have a great agenda for this 2-day conference. I wish I could attend some of these sessions today. It's a lot. It's heavy. It's a lot of stuff. And I think you come into this session first really kind of lays the foundation for the rest of the sessions that you're going to have. So thank you so much for participating. The slides will be given to the conference organizers. Okay. Thank you. Nice to meet you.